All right, here we go. Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and today, what makes you happy? I know what makes me happy. Rainbows! And joining us from the other side of the rainbow is the host of the Best Interest podcast, Jesse Cramer. Plus, a woman who'll help you buy a house without being crushed by it, Paula Pant. And finally, the man who'll get you, and your little dog, too. It's OG! But that's not all. Halfway through the show, I'll share a teeny tiny little trivia question. But now, the man behind the Stacking Benjamin's curtain, it's Joe Saul-Sehy.
You know what, Doug? We wanted somebody who was hanging out with us on a Friday. They're like, I don't ask for much. In fact, I don't ask for anything, but I do want to hear the OG live. So can you, just for that person, do the OG thing we do on Monday, Wednesday?
The OG stuff? What? Will we throw them under the bus and make them?
And
got it. All right.
Come on. You had a special request, man. We don't get requests.
I wonder who that request is from. Here we go. It's Joe.
Right. Sure looks like it's from him directly, doesn't it? There you go. You're welcome, YouTube. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. We're super happy you're here with us hanging out. And you know what? Last week, we were really tactical, teaching you how to teach kids about money with a great panel. Next week, we're going to be tactical again. So this week, we're getting philosophical. We're going to talk about happy, right? Money is not about chasing money. It's about chasing more happy, and hopefully wealth gives you the flexibility to be able to do that. And here with us today, we've got three fantastic contributors. We'll have our guest of honor last. Let's start with the guy across the card table from me. Mr. OG is here. How are you, my friend?
Am I the Wicked Witch of Texarkana?
Apparently you are. That might be a little foreshadowing toward our trivia.
I'll get you, my pretty.
You're very good. He's very good at that.
I feel like I might have a leg up on that. I'm kind of a Wizard of Oz fan.
Are you? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Oh, well, we'll see. And Paula Pant, you're not known for your prowess when it comes to movies, but Wizard of Oz, are you all about the Wizard of Oz?
Well, so I'm really into Broadway musicals. I'm not a big pop culture or movie person, but I love Broadway musicals.
And?
So I love Wicked. I've seen it 3 times.
Oh, gee, how many times have you seen Wicked?
A lot, probably. Yeah, maybe double that. Maybe 5, maybe 6.
This is how many times OG's seen Wicked. He invited Cheryl and I to see it with him. He doesn't remember going to see Wicked with us. And by the way, ask OG if I'm joking. I am not joking. I brought this up a couple weeks ago. He's like, we went to see Wicked together? I'm like,
yeah. I remember seeing it in New York with my son. That was special for me. But I've seen it in lots of other places also.
Seeing it with you guys, that was not
Joe
special
and
for
Cheryl
me.
was like just another Tuesday.
Who cares? And the guy who is wicked awesome. We finally have him here. Jesse Cramer from the Best Interest podcast. Dude, it's about damn time.
Well, it's an honor to be here. And as I was walking down the stairs into the basement, defying gravity, you could say, right? I'm going down. But in the honor of happiness, I thought to myself, what do you call a party in a basement? A celebration. I'll see myself out. I'll see the first and last appearance on the Stacking Benjamins podcast.
That's why we needed you here. Jesse. I'm like, brother by another mother right there. Well, the 3 people that don't know, the hottest show in podcasting, your show I keep seeing it more and more all over the place. Tell the 3 people that don't know about Best Interest. I always call it Better Interest.
So
I want Better Interest, Jesse. Change the name for me.
Can I tell that story, Joe, where we had to a couple times after our recording, I was like, Joe, can you just go into the microphone right now and say the Best Interest like 4 or 5 times? Because You called it the better interest live during the recording like 8 times. And we're going to have to edit those all out.
I got to tell you, the best thing to do when somebody invites you on their show is F up the name of the show. Like that is like huge.
I mean, here I am on Stocking Benjamins, and it's just an honor. It's just an honor.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Paula was like, I'm on net what? Net fun? Net movies?
Probably Hulu.
That's right. Yeah, call it Hulu. They'd love that.
There you go.
But the Best Interest podcast.
Yeah, the Best Interest, it started as a blog, and it still is a blog, but there's a parallel podcast. So I write and I podcast. And my thought is, a lot of the financial basics have been written about and talked about, and they're out there and they're easy to find. And I try to find topics that are maybe a little bit deeper, call it, Finance and Investing 201, and just try to put out some pithy, entertaining content to help people who are past the basics and kind of looking for that next step in their investing and personal finance journeys.
It's a lot of fun. And you do all that from Rochester, New York, where I think it stopped snowing, yesterday?
2 days ago. 2 days ago. Yep. But now it's beautiful now. It's beautiful now. Just like that.
It's isn't it funny how the season changes? Like, here in Texas, all of a sudden it's humidity. Like last week, like bam, no humidity.
Everybody talks about this. Texas is so hot and all this stuff. We have 4 seasons. The article that we're going to talk about talks about seasons. We have 4 seasons like everybody else. We have almost summer, which is where we are today. Summer, still summer, which happens in like October, November, and Christmas.
There it is. Yes. Bringing you the 4 seasons of Texas, brought to you by State Farm. In the business for small business insurance, State Farm knows your business is your life. State Farm agents are small business owners too, so they know what it takes. They can help you create a personalized insurance plan that fits your small business needs and budget. Small business insurance from State Farm, like a good neighbor. State Farm is there. Talk to your local agent today. Doug, for once, I didn't forget to mention our friends at State Farm. And also, because we keep this podcast free, you know how we keep it free? We keep it free for you because we have a couple more sponsors, which you're going to hear right now. All right, we got Paula Pant, Jesse Cramer, OG, neighbor Doug. Let's get moving. Our piece today comes from a blog that I have never read before. Scott H. Young's blog. Have any of you guys? If you guys know Scott? You know Scott, Paula. He
was on our podcast. He was on the Afford Anything podcast.
Excellent, fantastic.
Episode 290. I was actually just looking it up. Way back in the day. Episode 224.
What a great piece here that we're going to share. He's got his 7 rules for happiness. And he talks about how he is not an expert at happiness. In fact, he says, I don't claim to have discovered the recipe for perpetual bliss, but from my decidedly unenlightened perspective, and I love the humility in this, I found a few maxims that made my life better that I'd like to share. And you know what? This isn't, Jesse, and I know you find this with your guests, this isn't truly about having more money. It's about building more life and building more happiness.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. I mean, something I found right in the beginning of the article is the paradox that Scott Young points out of we really want to be happy. We all want to be happy, but we're kind of bad at being happy. And a lot of times we kind of twist ourselves around the axle trying to squeeze this happiness out of life. And when we don't feel happy, it almost compounds in a bad way where we say, I'm trying so hard to be happy. Why am I not happy? And as I was reading the article, I thought of these 2 books. I've got a really close friend who one book was The Algebra of Happiness by recent guest Scott Galloway, recent guest of Stacking Benjamins.
Yes.
And then another book is called The Happiness Project, which is kind of like a 5-year journal.
Gretchen Rubin.
Yeah, exactly. And this friend of mine read The Algebra of Happiness and tried to use The Happiness Project in her life. And she actually found that it kind of served to point out how unhappy she actually was. And so it gets back to that paradox that Scott Young points out of happiness is kind of elusive and slippery in that way.
Well, let's dive into it. Paula, there's 7 of them here. And rather than just go through the piece, let's just pick the ones that really spoke to you. So Paula, which one of these 7 things Scott talks about happiness really made you sing?
So the one that resonated was, and I thought this was beautifully worded, stop listening to people who are paid to make you angry. Wow. I mean, I could not have, there's no way I could have constructed that sentence more eloquently or more beautifully. I mean, in however many words that was, he summarized one of the grave problems facing modern society and how to solve it.
It's funny.
At the individual level, how to solve it within ourselves.
I've been talking about a book over and over, and I'm going to do it again because this woman, and we just got to get her on the show, Catherine Price, and this book, The Power of Fun. And she talks about how, and she says the same thing, Paula, that what Scott says here, our brains weren't designed for social media. And she goes through the science of that and how it sucks the fun and the joy out of our life. I know that our friend and the editor of this show and your show, Steve Stewart, Steve turned off the news. And by turning off,
good for him.
And by turning off, I don't think Steve has watched the news in a couple of years. And he's like, you know what's funny? I thought I'd be ill-informed. I always find a way to find out everything that's going on. Like I always somehow know what's going on, and I don't watch people yell at each other. OG, I know you've been on a kick to kind of get rid of the social media thing.
I mean, not on a kick. I pretty much have done it. I've kind of dipped my toe back into like YouTube Shorts because it's like a death spiral of doom scrolling. But I find that not to be as like FOMO-y as the other ones, notwithstanding the potential tech issues associated with TikTok, which again, talking about being ill-informed, I'm ill-informed on, but I can tell you what I've heard. And so that makes me uncomfortable. But you know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like that sort of stuff is really designed, I think, to be an echo chamber of, you know, the support of the belief system that you have. And so the more that you go, I like that thing, and you put attention on that, then the more likely it is that you're going to see that, which reinforces the belief system that you might already have, which may not be correct, which may need, you know, you may need to have a broader idea of a topic or something like that. But because all you see in those things are, you know, people that sound exactly like you, I think you're missing out on it. And then the other side of it is all the FOMO stuff of, you know, you see I have a very perfect example of this. There's a place in Montana called the Yellowstone Club. And we think of Yellowstone, we think of like the show or the park.
It's funny how the show comes before the park now.
Yeah,
we used to think of the park. Now we just think of the show.
Now we just think of Kevin Costner. Right. Think of Rip. Most people think of Rip in the train station. But there's a place called the Yellowstone Club, and it's somewhere in Montana. Anyways, when they would Instagram like pictures of homes for sale, and we would play the game of how much does this cost? And you go through, and you're like, okay, it's a 5-bedroom house. It's ski in, ski out. It's got a hot tub, all this stuff. And we'd be like, okay, how much? Your neighbor is Justin Timberlake. Oh, and it would be like 31 million. Talk about like taking the wind out of your sails. You see this beautiful home on this nice view, and you're like, there is no chance, and just like seeing that over and over and over again, it felt so demoralizing to me to experience that stuff. And it was just it was there, but in all these other things, I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to participate in that anymore. So it's a little spin, Paula, on what he says. It's not like you've paid to make me angry, but paid to make me unhappy.
Well, it breeds comparison too, right?
Contempt is what it is. It's not even comparison. It's contempt. It's like, why don't I have that? It's why does that person get to have that? And I work hard. I rise and grind some days, at least twice a month, by the crack of 8:30, I'm up, but you get the point, right? It's just, there's nothing good in comparison. There's nothing good in seeing that in your face all the time. And then to find out, of course, you find out later that most of it's BS.
Yeah.
Right. Like how many like side stories have you heard about the person who like rented the private jet just for the photo shoot?
Oh,
didn't actually fly the private jet, but just took a photo shoot in the private jet to post it.
Right.
Deal.
OG, one of my favorite recent TikTok videos was showing behind the scenes of an influencer's life. And there's this dude who is like he's at a restaurant and he's holding up food and he's all like happy. And the second that the person across the table turns that camera off, you see the abject misery and how much this dude hates it. Just hates it. Like he goes from great to, oh my God, horrible. And it just,
I'm not going to eat that.
yeah,
I like how
right,
OG's
right.
algorithm is serving up Yellowstone Club real estate to him, and I'm getting rodent control and foot fungus ads.
Hey, you're into what you're into, Doug.
They know the audience.
No shame, bro.
Yeah.
Like
you go get that foot fungus. Oh, look at
but
that.
you get
Look
the
at that
idea
foot
though.
fungus.
It's just, there's, I don't know. I just, and then I see what it does to my kids, like in terms of they're responsible young men and Caroline's still young, but, so she doesn't really have it, but you know, even they are observing the chaos theory that is social media. So
Jesse, you seem to me to be a guy that gets a lot done. How do you turn it off?
Yeah. Not that I do want to answer that question, but my mom is an English teacher, Doug. And so I'm a stickler for syntax. Now, it's one product that's both rodent killer and foot fungus?
You got that right. Absolutely.
let's eat grandma.
Yep.
It matters where the comma is, right?
Great. I can forward it to you, Jesse, if you're interested.
That's a hell of a product.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
It does everything.
Are they looking for
2 for 1.
sponsors? I mean, the Best Interest Podcast, sponsored by Doug's Magic Spray.
No, Doug's Magic Spray is the other thing. That's the other
Solve
thing.
2 problems in 1.
Well, when I read this number 5 on this list of 7, I think I had a very similar reaction to Paula, which was like, it's like the prize bell went off in my head, like ding, 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 because making people angry has become one of the predominant business models of the internet. And it's literally making people crazy. And when I was listening to your answers, I thought of this concept of audience capture. Have you guys heard of this concept of audience capture before? It's this idea that for some content creators, there's this self-enforcing feedback loop where an audience rewards the creator for a particular message, and that encourages the creator to repeat that message over and over and over. And it's kind of this, it creates that echo chamber, right? And I think all of us on this podcast or in this content creation space, we need to be aware of it first off. Now, what we're doing, kind of just providing nuts and bolts, straightforward, honest, good advice, we're in a pretty good spot. But you can see some of those creators out there, some of the ones who are stoking the most anger, so to speak.
Oh, you can totally
see it in action. And it's a spiral down. It's only going in one direction, and it's not a good direction. So yeah, stop listening to people who are paid to make you angry. That's a terrific.
I'm going to call one out, Jesse. I love behavioral psychologist and CFP Brad Klontz. But Brad, when he was on the show, said he does that. He said he does that. He's like, because it makes my social media channels hum. And he knows, and we learned this from the great minds at MIT, you say something very incendiary, that brings in a few people very quickly that comment, which means the algorithm gets tickled, and then it shows it to a lot of people. And so Brad spends half of his day just throwing bombs on the internet.
Well, we know, Joe, we know of a podcaster in the finance world that literally went to that extreme, in his content, and all of his stuff went one hardcore direction, and half of his audience went away, but the half that stayed were like, yes, bro, yes.
And
you're like, whoa, hold on. It was crazy. It was nuts. But there's a reason for this happening. It's because of the internet. And it sounds, like there's a lot of good things about technology. But once we got to know as a society instantaneous information, the information that was kept from us that we had to tune into either via print media and get the newspaper every afternoon delivered, or news media, watch Tom Brokaw at 6 o'clock at night to see what happened in the world. Once we could get instantaneous information via the internet, then those products, those delivery platforms had to turn into marketing platforms.
Yep.
And that's why you saw and continue to see, I think, and there's some, you can see this turn that happened in the 90s. You can see how these different channels, I don't actually mean television channels, but just different channels have evolved to be like, the ubiquitous Fox versus MSNBC, right? There's a reason they're like that. It's because to your point, Jesse, they're like, we know who we want to serve, and we are going to double down on serving those people 1,000 times over, because the more like you both were saying, Joe, the more incendiary we can make it, the more people go, yeah,
bro. We've got,
and more that other guy is the enemy, which is just
horrible,
ridiculous.
Absolutely horrible. So Paula, I know you've like blocked yourself from TikTok.
Oh yeah. So I have taken TikTok off of my phone. I have there's somebody on my team who creates little like YouTube shorts, like they create snippets from the podcast and they go and upload that to our to our TikTok page. But literally I pay somebody to handle TikTok on my behalf. I have it taken off of my phone. I don't personally touch it or deal with it at all. And that's just it's because it's not good for me. I know it's not good for me.
Yeah, it's not good for me. I haven't done that. And I will spend 45 minutes and go, where did that time go? And I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And I know better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jesse, let's have you pick one. What's one that spoke to you?
How about number 2 in the list, which is striving is good, but achieving is overrated.
Love it.
Now,
love it.
I really like that in the article, Scott Young used a doodle of a mountain climber, and striving was kind of that climber going up the side of the mountain, and then achieving was at the summit. And it reminded me of a very early article I wrote featuring one of my terrific friends, who's actually a listener of Stacking Benjamins, Tyler Sokash. Shout out to Tyler. Tyler did something really cool. He hiked 7,000 miles in 13 months, covering the Pacific Crest Trail. So that's Canada down to Mexico. He flew to New Zealand and hiked the Te Araroa, which is kind of north to south across the entire New Zealand countryside. And then he flew back to Atlanta and did the Appalachian Trail from Georgia up to Maine.
What an underachiever.
Right? Did that in 13 months. And it's actually an interesting personal finance story too, because
Doug would have done it.
What was he running from?
Yeah. It's like the classic kind of fire Bill Perkinsy story where he was about to buy a car, and it was like a $25,000 Subaru. And he's like, well, I could buy this car, or I could go do this hike while I'm 27, relatively unattached, in really good shape, better shape than I'll ever be in again the rest of my life. And he went and did that. So it's a pretty cool personal finance happiness story. But something I thought about is, when Tyler summited Mount Katahdin at the trail's end, I'm sure it felt pretty great. Like, what a relief. But that probably wore off after about an hour. And the glory of whatever we do in life will wear off. And you're either going to be left with the memories of, wildflower prairies and star-filled nights, or just with the regret of sore legs and grimy discomfort for months and months and months at a time. And I think, personal finance or just seeking out happiness is no different. The more we just think about the end goal and the less we focus on the journey between now and then, I think focusing only on the end goal leads to more unhappiness. And we have to find a way to enjoy these day-to-day moments.
I like that. There's a Seneca quote, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it's something about how, the only moment that you have is right now. And it's not about that a moment later. It's right now. And if you're giving your best right now, that's all you can do. And then I also think that, it's also about enjoying it right now. That's super, super cool. Paula, did this one speak to you too?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now to the mountain analogy, I've read a lot of stories of people who have summited Mount Everest. And a theme that I hear over and over and over is that a lot of them say, by the time I got to the summit, I was so tired, I just didn't care. I hit the summit, great. We got to turn around and descend before the weather turns, because there's a very short, there's a narrow window of time in which you can safely make a descent from the Everest summit. And so, like, if you read through this story after story after story, the climbers are like, made the summit, too tired to care. All I could think about was we need to descend while, before the snowstorm comes in. And so it was really, it wasn't even it was the training, it was the year of training in advance of the climb. It was the community that formed around it. Like, it was all of those moments that really drove the experience and not that actual moment at the summit.
It was so amazing, Paula. We had Jen Drummond on the show in January. She's the first woman to climb the second highest peak on all the different continents. And it's funny because we spent, and I didn't think about this at the time. I'm thinking about it now as you're saying this. Jen spent that entire interview, people go back and listen to it, talking about all the preparation she did, all the cool things that happened along the way to the summit. I don't think we ever talked about the summit. You know what I mean? We didn't talk about that high. I totally agree that the striving is it. OG, to speak to you as well.
I mean, yeah, the whole thing around, progress, not perfection, and, just continuing to work on your craft, whatever it is. There's a thing that I'm personally interested in, a hobby that I do, and there's no way to be perfect at it. There's ways to be better, and there's ideas and processes that you can use to be better, but there is no perfect. And what's really interesting about it is when you talk to people, they all say the same thing. I've never been perfect in this endeavor. Even the best people that do this go, I've never had a perfect outcome. And for high achievers, this is really difficult because, it's hard to envision putting in a lot of work and not having the outcome that you want, or not having the outcome that you think you should earn because of all the work that you put in, but rather to enjoy the period of time that you're in around the activity of the work. And, we talk about this in Strategic Coach around, the gap in the gain, which is kind of a central kind of concept in Strategic Coach that, Joe, you and I are in. And the whole idea is that the horizon is never achievable. Progress always comes from looking out at the back of the ship, to see how far you've come, not looking at the horizon to see how far it is to go yet.
And so many people in the financial rat race are chasing the horizon.
Yeah. And it's a balancing act, right? I mean, you have to have financial goals, and you have to have, hurdles to achieve and progress to get to, and that sort of thing. For some people, that's super motivating. But I've noticed in my personal life, I've achieved just about every financial thing that I can think of. But there's not like if I don't have the next thing ready, there's like this huge period of time in my life where there's like nothing going on. There's, I joke about getting up at the crack of 8:30. I mean, that's kind of true, not because I don't have anything to do. It's just I'm not a morning guy. I don't have a lot of stuff going on right now, but when I've got a thing that I'm really focused on, I can feel the extra energy that goes into that. But if that's the point, right? If it's like, oh, as soon as I get to $1 million, life will be good.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do at $1 million?
Yeah.
Guess what? There's the next dollar. I bought a sports car when I was 40, the proverbial midlife crisis. It was like perfect timing. And my brother said to me, he said, oh, you got to get a cool license plate. It says like, F you or something like that, some kind of like, look at me, bruh. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, this is a $40,000 convertible. My neighbor has a $200,000 convertible, like what? And his neighbor has a $600,000. Like, it doesn't, there is no, until you're Jeff Bezos, you're never going to win. And then even Jeff Bezos is like, crap, the market went down 10%. I'm number 3 again. It's like, it's short-lived for those guys too. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, and there's no way to achieve perfect when it comes to money. There's no way to achieve the top because, it's never ending. So you got to enjoy the process along the way, whether it's building financial wealth or learning a new skill or, whatever it happens to be. Wednesday, we talked about, the Olympics and racing against our kids and all that sort of stuff. I mean, like if you win your Olympic race, Joe, that you might do, it's like, then what? You can still go faster, right? Like you would still go faster. It's about the training. It's about the experience.
And my goal for people that didn't hear Wednesday's podcast was not to win. And it was the USATF Nationals. It was to try to make it to the Nationals and not finish last. Like, that is my goal.
But if you're going to not finish last, you might as well try to win.
I might as well. But man, those people are fast. OG, let's stick with you for a second.
Crap.
What's one that spoke to you?
Well, considering everybody took the good ones, thanks, guys. Appreciate that. I did like the thing about the prisoner's dilemma. I was thinking about game theory. That was kind of interesting. Talk about apologizing, but that is definitely not me. So Not gonna say that one's me.
I'm so sorry that I'm not going to apologize because I didn't like
I'm
that
so
one.
sorry. But look, apologizing isn't for me. I think the last one where he talks about, everything's a choice, I think is interesting to me. And not so much about like everything's a choice, but I find a lot of people when I talk to people, whether it's about money or just, life or whatever is going on, it seems like we all have a reason. I don't want to say an excuse, but sometimes it comes across as excuses. We all have reasons for why things are different than we want them to be. It's like, well, you don't understand. I had this happen to me, or this is what's going on in my life, or my money screwed up because I had to. That's a very common phrase, right? Oh, you don't understand. I had to, take care of my mom, or I had to do. And to me, that comes across very, it feels very victim mentality, right? Like I have no control over the outcomes of these things in my life. And there's two sides to that. I think it's like one side, it's nice because you feel like you've like eliminated the obstacle. Like, oh, well, hey, yeah, life is what life is. I don't have to worry about it. But then you've also given up the control that you have as a human to like influence things in your life. You can't, talks about changing the weather and that sort of stuff in the first one, but we can't change the weather, but you can go move to a place that you like the weather better. Like that's maybe not an option for everybody. I understand that, but it's, I challenge people to think about what else can I do? I guess that's kind of the way that I think about this is like, instead of looking and go, well, you don't understand, my life is hard because I get it. We all, like a lot of us have had hard stuff and go through hard stuff every time. And the stuff that I think is hard is maybe the stuff that Doug thinks is easy. Like my experience is different. But how I choose to process that information, and recognizing that I have some control over this, I think is what I took from that.
What I like in what you're saying, OG, I heard a Harvard professor talking about this recently. She said that it's less about making the choice than it is about getting 100% behind the choice you made. Just spend your time.
I am ready, fire, aim. That is my that is how I run my life. Like I'll just run in this direction. I would rather move than stand still. And for some people, that's uncomfortable.
People spend so much time bemoaning the choice they didn't make. And her example, because she's a Harvard professor, she's like, she'll hear a student go, Harvard's all right, but I wish I would have accepted at Yale. I should have gone to Yale. And she's like, you're assuming Yale would have been better. You're assuming the problem is Harvard and it's not you. You're assuming all of these different things. You don't know any of that. So instead, since you're at Harvard, be at Harvard. Like get behind it and stop wishing that you made a different choice.
There's a great book that was written in the 1970s called The Road Less Traveled, and Dr. M. Scott Peck wrote it, and it's very thick. It's very heavy, like not thick in terms of pages, but it's meaty.
Yeah,
he was a psychologist and psychiatrist. I honestly
one of those
don't know the difference. He's a something. Yeah, correct. That I knew, but I didn't know what he is or which one is different.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's a little heavy, and that's what he talks about. And there's a chapter around responsibility, and it's a great short chapter around, we cannot solve life's problems until we solve them.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is the beginning part of this chapter on responsibility. And for me, I would rather be in control of that, at least feel like I have control over it. Because then I've got the power to do whatever I want to do, right? Like I can say, oh, I don't want to accept this. I'm going to go, the weather sucks. I'm going to pack my family up and we're going to move to Texas. We'll see what happens,
Paula, sounds a little, this everything's a choice sounds like you can afford anything, just not everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds a little like that. I just coined that phrase just now.
TM. Wow. You should trademark it.
Yes.
TM, Joe. TM.
No, I think
Property
I got it from
Benjamin's podcast.
I think I got it from a different creator who said it on the Today Show and called it their own.
That also happened. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose to interpret that as she was so excited about the idea that she forgot to mention.
Must have just forgotten.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna choose to believe that because that's a choice.
Forgot to give credit where credit was
Yes,
due.
much like
Exactly.
she forgets to disclose her affiliate relationships all the time. But anyway, that's a different show. Let's.
But who's counting?
Yes.
So that whole notion is the notion of opportunity cost, right? It's the notion that everything is a trade-off, and that applies to any limited resource. To
This
your
sounds like the
time,
beginning
to
of your show.
I know.
I'm getting deja vu, Paula.
Your money, your focus, your energy. But I think by virtue of reframing, if you reframe "I can't" into "How can I?" and ask every question through that lens, what you'll find is that sometimes there are big trade-offs, right? They're huge trade-offs. But if there's something that is truly important to you, truly, truly important to you, then you will move heaven and earth to make it happen. And if something isn't that important to you, if you're not willing to make the trade-offs, then that's okay. You have decided it's not a priority. But there's an enormous gulf between saying, I can't versus I choose not to, between saying it's impossible versus it's just not a big enough priority for me to want to do that, right? That's the distinction between empowerment and limitation.
Well, and what I love about that too is, I don't know, at some point in my adult life, I realized when I said I don't have time for that really meant that I don't want to do it.
It's not important to me.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
No,
What the answer is, or what you were thinking of is no.
Right.
exactly. Yes.
And you just didn't want to say, like, you didn't want to look at the person and go, no. Hey, could you serve on this board? We could
Which
really
is such a
and you're
brave
like,
answer.
Oh, listen, I got a lot of stuff going on. I'd love to devote time in it. No, what you want to say is just no.
Jesse, you
No,
got the
I don't
last
want
word on this one, brother.
Yeah, no, what OG said is great right there. Because it's hard to look someone in the eye and say,
Oh God, you're becoming his
and
best
say
friend
no.
now.
It's hard to say no.
Tell me more. Go
or
on.
in other words, it's hard to
Go
look
on.
at someone and say, I intentionally do not choose you. Right? That's a hard thing to say. It's a hard thing to say.
I'm going to do that from now on. I intentionally choose to not
Josh, if you
do this.
Jesse, did you ever have that done to you at a bar in college?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. How'd you know?
I
I intentionally
deliberately
decide not
OG,
to do this.
if you say that on Good Morning America, though, I better hear from you. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
I will
That's all
say
I'm saying.
TM. I promise.
I loved that Scott Young used that phrase "locus of control." That's a really good phrase, and it's helped me a lot over the last 7 to 10 years. Whether that's getting my finances in order, changing careers. Currently, I'm working harder than ever on my health before. And if you thought my references and jokes were cringy before, just wait. Because as I was reading this article and as I was thinking about this, I thought of the scene, which maybe you guys have seen, from the third Matrix movie, The Matrix Revolutions, when Neo is fighting Agent Smith and it's raining all around them. And there are all these copies of Agent Smith everywhere. Neo is totally surrounded. And Neo's getting beat up. And he's fighting against insurmountable odds. And he's fighting against the fallacies of human nature and against entropy and the fact that clean rooms get dirty and new cars break down and all that's good slowly turns to rust. And why keep on fighting? And Agent Smith asks him, why do you keep on fighting? And Neo says, because I choose to. Boom. Mic drop. But I just thought to myself, there's so much in the world.
And you got that from the third Matrix movie.
I know.
Hey,
I would love for you to dissect Top Gun. That's more my jam. What can we learn from Battlestar Galactica?
Hey, I've never seen Battlestar Galactica, but the thing is, I just mentioned entropy, and the thing that you can learn from Top Gun is that entropy does not apply to Tom Cruise, apparently. Does that guy get older?
Apparently
He's
not.
been the same age for like 40 years.
Yeah.
Same with J-Lo.
Oh.
J-Lo has been the same age
Right.
for since the day she was born. She ages in reverse.
Benjamin Button.
But
It's annoying.
Yeah.
It is truly annoying.
Speaking of,
It's inspiring. It's inspiring.
Your inspiration is my annoying. But
thinking of J-Lo, though, brings me to this Annie Duke quote that, to me, kind of wraps up point number 7 in the article. So you guys might know this quote where Annie Duke says, exactly 2 things lead to the outcomes in your life. The first one is luck, and the second one is the quality of your decisions. So J-Lo, maybe she has really good genetics. Maybe she just has really good skincare. I don't know. It could be luck. It could be the quality of her decisions. But when I think about this conversation about everything is a choice, and I think about having either that fatalistic attitude or taking an empowered attitude, taking control of our lives, I think, all right, you can't control the luck. You can't control the weather, as Scott Young wrote, but you can control the quality of your own decision making.
We're going to attack a couple more of these after our break, but at this point in the show, we're going to pivot to our year-long competition where we have a competition between OG, Paula, and my mom, who never wants to take the time to play for herself. So we got Jesse playing for mom today. It's a year-long competition to see who the champion is. And Jesse, that means playing for mom brings with it good news and bad news. Which one would you like?
I'll take the bad news.
The bad news is you're going to have to guess first because mom is in first
Good
place.
for her.
So mom has 5, OG has 4, and Paula has 4. So putting the guest on his first time on the Stacking Benjamin show, and you're just going to be thrown in the fire, Jesse. So here we go. We need a question though, Doug. So I believe you might have something to do with the Wizard of Oz, but I'm not sure. Let's see.
I've worked a little something up, Joe. Hey there, Stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. On this day in 1900, Frank L. Baum's renowned fantasy novel, The Wonderful World of Oz, was first published in the United States. It was an immediate hit, with the first adaptation of the book coming in 1902 as a live production that opened in Chicago before moving to Broadway the following year. It's too bad they didn't film those productions. Man, I'd love to see how the audience reacted when they released the live flying monkeys. Over the years, Baum's novel has been adapted into nearly 24 productions, including the film that made the book famous. Contrary to popular belief, though, The Wizard of Oz was not the first film to be shot in color, which, of course, I already knew that. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew it.
Right.
In case it comes up in some other bar game trivia question. I'm always thinking of you guys when it comes down to. Here's today's trivia question. How many little people were hired to play munchkins in the movie The Wizard of Oz? I'll be back right after I figure out how they bred those horses to change color. Gotta figure that out.
It was a difficult process. By the way, are zebras white with black stripes or black with white stripes? Paula, do you know?
My guess, I don't know the answer. My guess would be neither of the above, that there is no base coat.
No. This is, Joe,
Chris Rock has answered this question.
No knowledge. The females are black with white and the males are white with black. I mean, everybody knows this.
OG?
Paula,
wow.
don't listen to Doug.
OG?
Yeah, I believe it's already been answered by Chris Rock in Madagascar, the movie,
and
the kids movie. Am I white with black stripes or black with white stripes? I believe. What was his name? The zebra.
I don't know.
Right now,
Chris.
And we're done. Boy, that was great.
What?
Hold
Wait,
on.
where did the zebra question come from?
I don't know. He was talking about how the horses got turned into
Horse of another color.
Oh, there we go.
The horse of another color.
Okay.
Yes. So there we go. All right. Well, OG looks that up, Jesse.
Back to whatever.
Yes. Jesse, how many little people hired to be in the Wizard of Oz?
I'm stumped. I'm stumped because I'm picturing Gene Wilder in Willy Wonka, and that is not the right movie. Or Charlie and the Chocolate
different
Factory.
movie.
And I'm stretching my mind to go back to The Wizard of Oz, and even I'm trying to conceptualize the scenes in which there are little people. But still, I have a feeling, and I'm going to say 11.
This is the classic Judy Garland one we're talking about, by the way, just so everybody knows. So 11. 11 is Jesse's answer. Locked and loaded. OG, you are second. Think it's more or less than 11?
Doug, can we get a little rendition of "We Represent the Lollipop Guild" for the tape, please? Any chance? In the falsetto, please, would be great.
We represent the Lollipop Guild. The Lollipop Guild.
Thank you. That's
Uncanny.
amazing.
Nailed it.
That's really great.
Multi-talented people.
I think so. I feel like the number's a little bit higher. Give Paula something to work with here. I'm going to say the number is 32.
32. Ooh. Paula, you got 11 and 32.
All right. Well, before I give my answer, I would like to throw out a related piece of trivia, which is that, and this is true, in the Broadway musical, the reason that the character Elphaba is named Elphaba is as an homage to L. Frank Baum.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like that.
How about that?
Good right?
You're welcome, people. No extra charge for that.
And that being said, I'm going to go with 33. I'm going to capture the upside.
Going to go to the upside. All
Takes the upside. We got 11. We got 32. We got Paula capping OG, which means it'll probably be lower, Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way it always works.
I think everyone at home who made their bets right now.
They're like, nope, it's definitely less than that because Paula chose the top.
Exactly.
We'll find out who's right in just a moment. Jesse, you opened up this shindig with 11, and OG and Paula both think it's higher. You feeling good?
Not really. I mean, and the reason being, I know some of the songs from Wicked, but I'm not as big enough Wizard of Oz fan to have seen it 3 and 6 times. So I really feel like my firepower here is I'm undergunned. And I just think OG and Paula have a better sense for the Wizard of Oz than me.
Paula saw Wicked, though, not the Judy Garland movie. Paula, have you seen that?
Not anywhere near old enough to have seen Judy Garland.
Have you seen the Judy Garland movie, Paula?
I have seen when I was a child. I saw the Judy Garland movie. It's one of the few classic movies that I have actually watched.
What's great, Paula, is if you take the time to watch the Wizard of Oz that everybody knows. And then you you see the Wicked, like how that structure of that story is. It really changes the perspective. Because Wizard of Oz, it's the Wicked Witch, right? She's evil and all that stuff. And then of course you find out in Wicked she's not evil. She's just
exactly.
misunderstood.
I mean, the retelling of that story through Elphaba's perspective,
and then she doesn't, spoiler alert, doesn't die at the end.
Oh my goodness. Give it all away. Yeah, so then the book
it's only been out for 25 years, so
that's right.
At this point, you haven't seen it.
If you don't know yet, there might be a problem. Paula, you feeling confident?
I am feeling confident. Also, I did watch a YouTube video where somebody literally gave a spoiler alert for Shakespeare's Hamlet, which has been out for 400 years.
Yes, there you go. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
That's so good. I saw this. I saw a video. Speaking of TikTok, which was Star Wars truthers, by the way, where these two stormtroopers are in the break room, and one guy's going, "No, there's no way one Jedi went and blew that whole thing up. Like it was all in the inside. Like I don't know. It was apparently not as funny as
I like that.
I thought it was." OG, feeling good?
No. I mean, I was trying to pick a number that Paula would be forced to,
go between.
I actually think the number is 47. I don't know why but I think that was the number. I was trying to pick a number that she would be interested in taking the under.
Let's see, Doug, who's bringing home the prize?
Wasn't right here.
Their answers all suck so much. I'm not sure anybody's bringing home the prize, but I'll just go ahead and tell you what else I got. Hey there, stackers. I'm movie buff and king of the flying monkeys, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Following the rule that any book published before 1923 exists in the public domain, the wonderful world of Oz is available for anyone to adapt or reimagine free of charge.
We could do it.
Yeah. The movie, The Wizard of Oz, however, is copyrighted. Anyone hoping to make a spin-off the movie will first have to buy the rights from Warner Brothers. Well, there goes another goal of mine. Might as well just give up. Today's trivia question is, how many little people were hired to play Munchkins in the movie The Wizard of Oz? The answer? Well, Dorothy's dog Toto was paid a handsome $125 per week. Most Munchkins were paid a smaller amount.
You're kidding me.
Smaller amount.
Smaller.
Yeah, right? Okay, well.
Hold on.
They were only paid $50 a week, while a handful who had speaking roles were paid up to $75 a week.
And Toto got paid $125?
The dog got $125 a week. Shortchanging them
Oh,
Must have been how the studios were able to afford to hire so many. I'm sure the studio was lowballing these guys. Probably worried about shrinkage. They were maybe... I got $1 million. They were maybe trying to undercut the whole Munchkin Brigade. What? Is that too much? Did I go too far? I'll be okay, fine.
No.
So how many little people were in the cast of Wizard of Oz? Well, the answer is... I'm not going to tell you that, but what I will tell you is Jesse was under by just 113. OG was under by 92 because 124 little people were in the cast of Wizard of Oz, making Paula our winner with her awful answer of 91.
Wait, what? Paula?
Yeah.
Wow.
Her answer wasn't 91.
My
Sorry,
answer
she
was
was
91
91
under.
off.
So,
Yeah.
Oh.
Her guess was
91
33.
wow. Once again, I don't have a speech prepared. It's
Because this is so infrequent. She's like, I didn't.
yes, exactly.
Who knew? Yeah, but I like, Jesse, you're anchored 11. You anchored everybody with your 11, I think.
Yeah, my strongest emotion right now is just I need to apologize to your mom, Joe. I mean, I came in and just completely missed the mark, and I'm going to own that. I'm going to choose to own that.
You can go up and apologize yourself to her, which, by the way, brings us back to the piece. That is one of the pieces, is apologize often. And so that'll be nice. She'll appreciate that. You know what? We're going to do 2 more here. And our second half of the show is brought to you by depositaccounts.com. Jesse, you know what happens when you go to depositaccounts.com?
I don't, but I'd love to learn, Joe.
Oh, it's great, man. You find out that brick and mortar savings account you have might have really crappy interest when you compare it to the 275,000 other deposit rates that are on depositaccounts.com. If the national average savings account, while we're recording this, which you'll want to go there yourself to check out what the rate is now, but the national average savings account rate, 0.52. Top 1%, almost back to 5%, guys, 4.96%. They also have CDs, checking accounts, money markets, 11,000 banks and credit unions. You can go there for free. Check out Better Interest on your money at depositaccounts.com. Better Interest, the name that Jesse's podcast should have been instead of the best interest. Yes. How about that? All right. Jesse, pick another one. What's another one of these happiness maxims that...
Yeah, I really liked number 6 spoke to me. Look for small novelties. And again, not to give more free press, I think it's well-deserved press to recent podcast guest Scott Galloway. And I don't know if it was here, Joe, or if it was on another podcast that he guested on where I was listening to him, and he was talking about the way that many of us live our lives, replaying events of the past and anxious about events of the future, and therefore not really doing one thing that's most important, which is living in the present moment. Maybe this harkens back to your Seneca quote, Joe. And Scott Galloway's concern is that he's going to be on his deathbed and he's going to say, holy shoot, I was never really there. I was never really there in the moment living my life. I was always thinking about the past and or anxious about the future. And so now this is Scott's story. He talks about times when it's a lazy Saturday morning. His kids walk into the living room. They sit on the couch. They watch Premier League soccer. The dogs follow him in and they lazily curl up on the floor. And Galloway sits there and he realizes, like, this is it. This is the big moment in life. And I think that's what life is, really. Life is nothing more than a series of small novelties.
That's the one thing I like on my phone, Jesse. I like the camera because I feel like in that act of taking a picture of the moment, like it gets me into the moment. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The other thing I like too is I used to want to buy the novelty all the time. I want to buy the thing. And I found that if I appreciate something, I don't need it as crap cluttering my house. I like taking a picture of it and then just remember it later. Paula, this one speak to you? Find the novelties?
Yeah, this one spoke a lot to me, and it reminded me of there's some research, and I don't remember offhand the details of who conducted the research or specifically
Probably
how
me.
the studies were designed. Yes, it was done by Dr. Joe Saul-Sehy
right.
of the University of Texarkana.
I probably talked about it on the Today Show. For people who are wondering what that's a reference to, Nothing.
keep nothing, nothing to see here.
No.
And so there was some research that showed that the effect on levels of self-reported satisfaction, essentially the effect on happiness, is greater by making frequent small purchases than it is by making one big ticket purchase.
Oh, wow.
And so there is actually, research to back the idea that looking for small novelties in the form of a little treat here, a little treat there, has a more profound effect on an overall sense of well-being than scrimping and saving and trying to overweight just one thing.
That's super interesting. Which really, I think it's less about the thing than it is about embracing the little small moments and having more of those. Like Jesse's talking about, everybody's watching soccer and this is the moment. This is right now.
Exactly.
Oh, gee, this one speaks to you?
Pass.
No? Oh, geez, all about the big novelty. He's like, no, I'll buy the big thing.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, what Paula said there, I thought was pretty interesting because, you think about like spending money and buyer's remorse and the dopamine hit of monetary, like doing the thing. You get the same effect if you put it in the shopping cart as you do from hitting purchase. So the challenge is like, just put it in the shopping cart and walk away. Like, and I don't mean the literal shopping cart, like at the store. I'm saying like you're on Amazon, you're like, oh my gosh, the thing that I want. Just put it in the shopping cart and then like close the app and like go away for a while. Like when you go back to Amazon the next time, it will tell you, hey, by the way, in case you forgot, you have this in your shopping cart, and then you get a second chance to make it an opinion about that. The pleasure comes from putting it in the shopping cart, not having it in your, show up in your doorstep. It's kind of a weird.
It is a weird thing. It is actually funny though, OG. I get the same feeling from just taking a picture of the thing. Like if I think it's clever or it's funny, like I used to go, oh, that's a clever t-shirt. I need to buy it. Then I'm like, where the hell would I wear that t-shirt? So,
we think about that with all of your clothes when we see you on TV.
That's right.
On camera.
Thank you. As an example,
where would I wear that? Out in the backyard.
As an example, I took a photo. I'm going to show you guys a photo that are hanging out with us on YouTube, but I'm not making fun of the condition because I think people suffer from the condition, but I am making fun of Wilford Brimley. And I took a picture of this t-shirt last week that pronounces it diabetes, which if you guys know Wilford Brimley, it's exactly how it says
he sold oatmeal back in the day.
I got the sugars. And I thought that was funny as hell. I don't think diabetes is funny, just for people wondering what I'm making fun of.
It's funny on a t-shirt.
But it's funny on a t-shirt with Wilford Brimley mispronouncing it.
Yeah.
That's the stuff.
First we came for the little people, and then we came for the diabetics.
That's right. If you're playing the bingo game at home.
Yes.
Who's next?
Tell me you were born in the 60s or 70s without telling me you were born in the 60s or 70s.
That's right.
So there's this guy, his name's Wilford Brimley. He used to sell oatmeal. He was amazing.
They have no idea who Wilford Brimley is. People
That's my point.
No clue. Paula's like,
Quaker Oats.
Lost on me.
Paula? No? Quaker Oats?
No.
Diabetes.
Is he the Quaker Oats guy? Is he like the guy whose face is on the box?
No.
It's very close, but no.
No.
He sold it. He would talk about eating oatmeal.
Yes.
To offset his diabetes.
Welcome to the Wilford Brimley podcast, everybody. My name's Joe. Yes. Speaking of that, let's bring it home. Who did I have pick that one? Did I have Jesse pick that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Paula picked the last one.
Ooh. Well, I wouldn't have said yes if I'd known.
You got picked on. Na.
Actually, you know what? I did just glance at it, but I can do one by memory. And it's one that reminded me of a guest who's been on both of our shows, Ken Honda. It's the one about meeting people more than halfway.
Love this.
So the advice is meet people more than halfway. And what that reminded me of is Ken Honda, who is known as Japan's Zen millionaire. And he's written books that have sold, I think, something like 8 million copies, like largely across Japan.
They call him like the Marie Kondo of money.
Yeah, exactly. And one of his tips in terms of having a Zen millionaire attitude towards money is that in any negotiation, you should lose a little bit. Like, essentially his take is, and you can agree with it or disagree with it, but his take is that you should meet somebody a little bit more than halfway. You should, get it to 55-45 with you being the person who gets the slightly smaller half. And the reason that he advocates for that is because, in assuming that it's a type of a negotiation in which you want to have an ongoing repeat relationship with this person, let's say it's a client or a customer or a business partner, for the sake of that relationship, you want them to feel as though they've got something really good. And if an extra 5% will do that, just let them have it.
Yeah. And then they'll love working with you. They'll want to work with you again. They want to be around you more. It's so, there's another piece to that too, Paula, that I believe, which is when I figured out that serving other people is just fun. It truly is fun. Giving other people what they want, making them happy is a huge source of joy. And talk about the hit you get. I get this great feeling of just fantastic when I figured out serving people was a
Joe,
great
can
time.
I have a raise?
No.
Maybe.
Serving Doug papers is fun. Jesse, this one speak to you?
I like this one a lot. And I was reading Scott Young's words about it's just the way he wrote it reminded me a lot of David Foster Wallace's speech, This is Water. You guys familiar with that at all? This is Water?
Yeah.
And it's actually the second time.
Wonderful.
It's the second time it's come up, because when we were talking about the small novelties in life and kind of like stopping to smell the roses, that's part of that This is Water speech, which is, this is the life that you're surrounded by. You better get used to it. Otherwise, it's just going to pass you by. But then there's this part of that This is Water speech where David Foster Wallace says, think about it. There's no experience you have had that you are not at the absolute center of. The world as you experience it is there in front of you or behind you, to the left or right of you, on your TV, on your monitor. And then a little bit later, he goes, it's about a matter of my choosing to do the work of somehow altering or getting free of my natural hardwired default setting, which is to be deeply and literally self-centered and to see and interpret everything through this lens of self. People who can adjust their natural default setting in this way are often described as being well-adjusted, which I suggest to you is not an accidental term. And kind of what Scott Young was writing about in this article that we're talking about here is so much of us are quite naturally, like right now, I'm the main character on this podcast. Sorry, guys. It's just my default setting. I'm the main character of everything I do. And most people are the main characters of everything they do. And we need to try really hard to go more than halfway to other people because everyone else is thinking the same way. And somehow we need to bridge that gap between me being self-centered and Joe being self-centered and Paula being self-centered. Doug and OG, you guys are pretty well balanced, but the three of us on top row, we're pretty self-centered. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, my point is we all need to do the work of going more than halfway.
Yeah, I was going to say it's getting thick in here. Yeah. OG, it's funny that when Jesse was talking, Donald Miller came to mind that made a whole thing about brand you is most brands get it wrong, Jesse, because they make themselves the center of the story. And instead, when you make your customer the center and you're Yoda, you're the guide that's going to help you get there. It's far better. OG, this one speak to you.
Yeah. Don't be the hero for your customers or your clients. Be the trusted guide along the way that has the experience. Colin has commented on YouTube. I don't know if you can see this, Joe, or not, but he says, how do you avoid losing all the ground to the other person in negotiations with this tactic? Wouldn't over time the relationship move from 45-55 to 40-60, 35-65, and so on and so forth? And I think, Paula, what you were saying is that if it's a one-time deal, right? Like then, yeah, you're going to try to, the long-term phrase is everybody's peed off in a negotiation. You're probably right. That's probably close, but if it's a long-term relationship, there is some value of reciprocity. There is some value of relationship building. I was talking to a friend of mine one time, and we were talking about just kind of the general sense of how people react and respond to different things. And you have this natural reaction if somebody does something for you to feel somewhat obligated to do something back. Like it's just this weird feeling of like, I owe this person something, whether it's a big, like somebody saved you from a burning building, or you got a slightly better deal, and you just kind of go.
I feel I'm with you, OG. I feel like Colin voices what everybody's worried about. If I give a little,
but it doesn't materialize.
It never
that
does.
way, right?
I mean, it rarely does. And if there's somebody you want to do business with or be around in the future, they won't.
Well, and think of it this way, right? It's like I was thinking about it in the context of business ownership, and there's a risk associated with owning a business and bringing in another party, bringing in another owner. And the risk is that now you're diluting your profits, right? You go, well, if I, Paula, if you said, hey, I will sell OG 20% of Afford Anything, the risk that you run is you go, well, I only get 80% of this deal, right? 80% of a dollar, I only make 80 cents. I should make my dollar, right? But the opportunity is now you have two really focused people who are going, wait a second, maybe we can make this into $2. And yeah, you only get 80% of it, but it's still 60 cents more than you were making before. It's still a better outcome for everybody because you have more people working. And I think, Colin, when you look at it from that perspective and you think about, a long-term business relationship, if you're thinking, how do we have multiple people pulling or rowing in the same direction? Yeah, I might only get 40% of this deal or 35% of this deal, but this 35% is a hell of a lot better than my 100% was, 2 years ago when I was doing it by myself. Maybe.
So I think, I really like that example. And I think to Colin's question, it's important to make the distinction, as you said, OG, between a deal that you're making one time, just you're selling a couch on Craigslist, versus that ongoing relationship. Because OG, I think in your example, what you highlighted is setting up a negotiation in such a way that your interests are aligned. And if the interests are aligned and both you and the other party are then working towards the same mission and the same goal, all right, now we're cool. Now we're moving. Now we're talking. And the example that I want to share about that is, so we're actually, of all things, we're in building out a course on negotiation. And we hired somebody to help script the course. And this person that we hired is an expert at negotiation. And so then we were put into the very awkward position of
negotiating with an expert negotiator.
He's like, so what do you think of a 60-40 split? And you're like, I feel weird right now. I feel like I'm going to lose this negotiation.
Yeah. I was literally, says Suni and I both, the chief sanity officer to Afford Anything, she and I were at the Texarkana airport. Joe, we were leaving your house. We were on the phone at the Texarkana airport. For various reasons, we had to get it done that day. So we're on the phone at the airport negotiating with a negotiations expert about how much she would get paid to create content about negotiation.
Wow.
Yeah. And
it's a Mobius loop if I've ever heard one.
I know.
What we came to is, what our ideal situation is that she would make so much money in residual income that she doesn't want to do her day job anymore. And she wants to come do more projects with us. And so we went into it with the mindset of, all right, let's set this up so that she's incentivized to do more work with us in the future.
And to make all the work valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And so since we were thinking of it with that mindset, how do we set this up so that she's incentivized to want to work with us more? It put us in a very different frame of mind than we would have been if our mindset had been like, how do we get as much as possible?
How do I get mine? Yeah. If it's very much a 2 plus or 1 + 1 = 3 type of deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, all humans are incentivized. Like we all respond to incentives, right? And going back to Colin's question, I think of that. What's the saying? You can shear a sheep many times. You could slaughter it once. Is that what it is? But it's that idea of like, if you go into a negotiation, if Colin's hypothetical negotiation occurs and it just ends up like you give up so much that you feel like you just got slaughtered. Well, that trade-off is never going to happen again. And most likely, whoever your counterparty is, just like you alluded to, I think, Joe, you alluded to the fact that if you want this to be an ongoing relationship, both parties are incentivized to make it balanced or fair in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. I think it's a great place to leave it too, guys. What a great piece. We will link to this in our show notes at staggybenjamins.com if you want to dive in and take a look at Scott Young's work here. Just a great piece. Really, really happy that you guys joined me to talk about it today. Let's find out what's going on where each of you are. OG, we are headed into a big weekend, graduation weekend for a lot of schools. You got any big plans?
No, I'm a year away from having those big plans. So yeah, no, we've got exactly 365.
Which means that you're coming to Kalamazoo with me tonight to meet all the stackers.
I am for sure maybe doing that.
Yes.
Yes.
We will be at the Hub this evening, 6:30 downtown Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Friday night?
You're in
Friday night in Kalamazoo? What could be better?
Duh. It's where you want to be. If you can't be in Texarkana, you might as well be in Kalamazoo.
Is Doug coming?
Doug, are you going to Kalamazoo?
I'm not going to go to Kalamazoo. I have
one
a
star.
couple other things to do.
One star for
Weak.
Doug. Yes. Paula Pant, what's happening at the Afford Anything podcast?
On the Afford Anything podcast, we have some great interviews that we've recently aired, including the Points guy, Brian Kelly, who talks about how he started. So he was making $65,000, a salary of $65,000. He was in credit card debt, and he started this little side hustle called the Points guy, just to make an extra couple $100 a month.
I love how he's going after points, becoming the Points guy while he has credit card debt. What would Dave Ramsey say?
I know, right? Yeah,
side
exactly.
hustle called the Points guy.
WWDD,
Exactly.
Paula. What would Dave do?
But that little side hustle now is a company with 140 employees. So we talk about that journey from side hustle to 140 employees. That's the Brian Kelly interview. We also interviewed the CEO of Open Door, which is a real estate transaction company. And he has started a new community out in Arizona that Mr. Money Mustache was living at over the winter. So he started like this pedestrian, bicycle friendly community, like live, work, play kind of a space.
You know how Pete loves his bike.
Exactly. So he was the perfect house guest to spend a winter there.
That's fabulous.
So, yeah, both of those are on the Afford Anything podcast.
Awesome. Where finer podcasts are found. Jesse, man, I'm so happy that you finally are here. Thank you so much for spending this episode with us.
Oh, thank you, Joe, Paula, OG, even you, Doug. Thank you guys so much.
What the hell?
I was going to say we got to do this again, but based on that, we got to do it again. What are you doing next week, Jesse? Let's do this again soon.
Oh, you guys make this so much fun. All of you make this so much fun. It's a real honor to be here.
So what's happening at the Best Interest podcast that should be called the Better Interest podcast?
Well, a couple interesting episodes recently. Episode 79 came out with Phil Perlman. Phil is a former finance guy who really now focuses on health. And we talk about, it's common in financial independence. Time is money, money is time, and you can move back and forth between the two. But Phil and I make the argument that, better health leads to more years and more good years. So in some way, health equals time. And all of a sudden now you have this A equals B and B equals C, so A must equal C, that health and time and money are very much interrelated in that way. And then more recently on episode 80, I had on a gentleman named Evan Giokis, who we dive deep into the college admissions process, not necessarily from a financial point of view, but more for parents of teens, of middle schoolers, high schoolers who are starting to think about college. And it's actually a pretty nuanced thought process of trying to make sure that your kid goes to college, they get their major right the first time, they love what they're doing, they end up with a decent job. It's, Evan talks about something, he calls it the college money pit trap. And if you can't tell, that's a bad thing. So we talk about how to avoid that.
That's fabulous. That sounds like an episode, OG, you need to listen to right there.
Sounds like it.
Yes, he's right on that train right now, Jesse. And that's
2 months until applications begin.
The Best Interest podcast where finer podcasts are found. Yes. And we'll link to it on our show notes, guys, at stackybenjamins.com. Thank you to Paula, Jesse, OG. Thanks to all of you hanging out with us on the YouTube machine. I'm glad you guys are here with us. Thanks to everybody for listening. Doug, man, I think you got it from here. What's What should our takeaways be?
Well, Joe, here's what's stacked up on our to-do list for today. First, take some advice from Jesse Cramer and Keanu Reeves. Happiness is a choice, but entropy is not, unless you're J-Lo. Second, remember what OG said about social media. It's entirely possible that the algorithms are built to create contempt. That's how they get you. Don't fall for it. But the big lesson? Never, under any circumstances, ask Joe's mom if she considers herself a good witch or a bad witch. Take my word for it. She does not focus on the good or bad part of that question. Thanks to Jesse Cramer for joining us today. You can listen to more of Jesse's awful jokes on his podcast, The Best Interest Podcast, wherever you're listening right now. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. I'm sorry, Jesse, you brought that on yourself. Thanks to Paula Pant for hanging out with us today. You'll find her fabulous podcast, Afford Anything, wherever you listen to finer podcasts. Thanks also to OG for joining us today. Looking for good financial planning help? Head to stackingbenjamins.com/OG for his calendar.
And for the Flying Monkeys.
This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2024, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Our producer is Karen Repine. Karen and Joe get help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.